Hey everyone, this is Domina Mara and welcome back to my channel. This has been 1 year since my epic Europe tour, and so this is a recap of my adventures in Greece, Sweden, and Denmark. We are going to begin my travels to Athens from Los Angeles. I took a charter bus from the airport into the city and walked around for a couple hours before heading to the port. How beautiful is this Silver Seas cruise ship? The room was gorgeous. It had so much space for the private suite, and every room got a personal butler, and I will introduce you to him later. My outfits for the week. I boarded at around 2:30 or 3:30 p.m. and after such a long flight, I was exhausted. But how could I resist exploring the ship? And that gave me a second wind as we left port. The sunset was a gorgeous welcome out to sea, and the temperature was perfect. To welcome us, hors d'oeuvres were served along with champagne. I took the liberty of visiting the libraries and checking out every vista point. This is Nur from Kazakhstan, and he was an amazing butler, and I'll show you why later on. Originally, I had to reserve spaces for dinner, and this one space in particular wanted a deposit because it was the fancy French restaurant. It was completely booked ahead of time, so luckily I walked up to the maître d' and asked if there were any openings, and he said yes, there was one table available, so I took it. And what a great way to end my first evening on the ship. After a good night's sleep, I arose to sunrise, and what better way to have breakfast than watch it rise over the crests of Santorini. The breakfast buffets were incredible and had so many options, and every day was different. I noticed the ship had a lot of lovely art on the way to the ferry that took me to shore. First stop was Oya. I wore blue because I wanted to match the tops of all of the buildings. The buildings are painted white as to reflect the sunlight, and the tops are painted blue to reflect the sky and the sea. The next stop was Santos Winery. I think I got 5 to 7 glasses in, overlooking the beautiful island. I spent the rest of the day in Fira walking along the steps that lined the coast. Eventually stopping to get my first gyro and baklava at a cafe. I eventually made my way down to Skaros Rock, which was not planned, and my poor loafers really made the trek. We found a cruise ship buddy that hiked along with us and explored ancient writings and caves before we had to hike back up to catch the sunset. Dans une rivière de douceur. 2 weeks before my trip, I made reservations at Argo because that was one of the recommended spots to overlook the curve of the island. I made the reservation at around 5:30, which was when the sun was supposed to begin setting, and it was perfect. I also ordered the seafood platter. The gorgeous feast caught the eyes of other tables. Since the cable car was no longer in operation for the day, I ended up taking the donkey trail, and it took longer than I expected because by the time I got to the bottom, it was dark. The lights were really pretty on the way back to the ship. I ended up recapping the rest of the evening with the buddy that was hiking with earlier that day, and we talked for hours, ending up hungry at around midnight, and so we ordered room service at one of the lounges before tucking in for the evening. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Oh, it is just one. That one's his.
Yep. I'll bring the team over.
Heck yeah.
This is for the carrot cake.
Wonderful.
Filet mignon.
Thank you. Movie utensils.
La vie glissait sur nous, sur notre insouciance même. La vie glissait sur nous, sur notre insouciance même. La vie glissait.
We ended up finishing a whole bottle of Johnny Walker Black Label between 6 of us and slept at 6 a.m. So I had to get up pretty slowly the next day because we arrived in Crete. It was a beautiful, placid day with an area for boats and these ducks with gnarly webbed claw feet. I love that there are lots of stray cats that are taken care of.
Are you trying to be cute so you can have some comfy cozies? Oh, yeah, stretch. Oh, yeah, stretch. Yeah.
The water is so blue and inviting. I went back to the ship for a brief break to hydrate and just relax by the poolside before heading out again. I went left instead of right this time after getting off the ship. I absolutely loved this glass sculpture that looked like a giant tentacle. At the end. And was pleasantly surprised by the beach, the marina, and lots of artwork that were found in mosaic and painting form. I didn't really have time to relax, and so all of these photos are just posing for the portrait. It is really cute. This cat looked up when the guy sitting at a table called him by Danny. On the way back, I ended up taking the inner streets and crossed over multiple bridges to experience more residential scenery. Upon my return to the cabin, I had to call upon my butler, Noor, because my loafers were splitting, and he went and found emergency super glue in one of the engine rooms to help press my shoe back together. I only needed my shoes to survive another 2 days. While I was waiting, I popped open the bottle of welcome champagne. That evening, I dined on the back patio of the ship as we pushed off into the sunset and had a lovely meal before attending the Italian opera with a cast of 5. Beautiful bonbons were served as well as more champagne. The next morning, I was back on track and watched the sunrise. It was a beautiful shade of red as I ate my breakfast. And as we were pulling into port, I decided to flow a little bit with my silk fans because the scenery was just so beautiful. Check out my full video on my Goddess Mara channel found in the link description below. Today I was visiting the Temple of Athena, which also became a fortress. We walked instead of taking the donkeys. I loved the ivy terraces that were built over the shops, which created really beautiful dappled light on the cobblestones. Stone floors were decorated with intricate patterns.
I don't want to scare you, but I have to warn you, okay? So if you're careful, there is no problem. We forget to watch down because the place is beautiful.
Here you could see a boat that was carved into the stone and the types of view that this temple had. All of the pedestals that you see here had a statue of Athena brought from all over the country as tribute. However, most of those got stolen over time. The view was just lovely, and you can see boats in this crater that I would have loved to have visited should I had more time. Instead, on the way down, I was able to briskly walk to a beach where I got to dip my toes for a couple minutes before having to head back to transport. I returned to the ship to have lunch and met up with our hiking buddy who joined us for the rest of the day.
Oh, it smells like heaven. Is there raisins in it? No, there's no raisins.
It was surf and turf day, so of course I had to grab a couple of lobster tails as well as some lamb chops. After luncheon, we visited the old town via the Damboise Gate to head to the Palace of the Grand Masters. This guy's live music added to the ambiance while we walked around. It served as a wartime fortress as well as a peacetime residence for the Grand Master, and it was a meeting place for senior knights. And we found this marketplace that had a gazebo in the center, as well as other stalls and stores. We passed by these large windmills and the marina on the way back to the boat. The sun was setting and I tried to flow with my fans once again, however this time it was way too windy, so I ended up in the hot tub.
There's too much wind! Il avait volé les flèches de l'autre.
Tonight was another fancy dinner, followed by some beautiful snacks and a giant chocolate dragon by the poolside during a night of dancing on the deck.
Les cœurs du monde d'ici. Alors ils sont entrés dans une rivière de douceur qui voulait couler jusqu'au bout du monde et plus loin encore.
The last day was an excursion to the secret island of Delos in Mykonos. You can find the sculptures of one artist sprinkled across all of the island, including in the ocean. It was a great juxtaposition, bridging modern art with ancient ruins. Lady Gaga actually tried to come here but was spotted and tried to avoid the paparazzi and had to leave immediately. It was great because when we were here, there were no other groups, as it was one ferry in and one ferry out. It was explained to us that cats were brought over to the island because there were a lot of rats and snakes, and the cats were used as exterminators. Everything is almost bleached white here because of the sun, and most days of the year it's extremely windy, so it's rare to have calm seas. The museum was filled with a bunch of different statues and all sorts of history, and outside was a family of black cats that were super sweet and liked to be pet. After docking, it was time to return to the boat, to change out of my drenched clothes, and to grab something quick to eat. I took a short nap, and then it was time to get into my captain attire so that I could do a quick photo shoot as the sun was setting and as we pulled into the Athens port once again. Final nights are always bittersweet, but I got to take a photo with one of the hosts who really loved my eyes. He claimed that it was the most beautiful shape that he'd ever seen. Huge thank you to such a special Silver Seas experience and to a very wonderful crew. Back in Athens, I decided to purchase the city pass and started at the temple of the Olympian Zeus, and continued walking to the Zapion Hall, which was gorgeous, probably holds receptions and was able to take a little stroll around the National Garden before heading to the apartment I rented. The apartment was about a mile or so from the Parthenon, and I was able to actually see the Acropolis from my window. Before my trip, I had also made reservations to Strophy restaurant. That's where I was going to meet Mistress Alexandra. After dinner, I toured her play space, Kingdom of Fantasy, for the second episode of my Modern Dungeons playlist, which you could watch on my YouTube channel. I had wanted to see a little bit of the nightlife, as I do in any place that I travel, and Kinky Opera showed up on my searches. Right next door is Babylon, and we had a blast. Today was Acropolis Day. I've been wanting to go see the Parthenon forever, even though it was under construction. Just the sheer history that has gone through the ages. I've learned about ancient Greeks since I was in 4th grade. The mythology and culture has been just so rich in my life. I wandered down and created a circuit to the Theater of Dionysus, because who is not in love with comedy and tragedy? I circled down back to Hadrian's library, where there was the Tower of the Winds. Having these buildings, or what's left of them, still stand to represent what had happened in the past is just really powerful. The views are also stunning. I also took a break to have a late lunch at one of the local cafes that was right across from the Hard Rock, and then walked across to the Stoa of Attalos, or Attalos. And you can see the Temple of Hephaestus, as well as the ancient Agora of Athens in that area, and continued exploring. At the end of the day, I wanted to try a souvlaki before filming at Mistress Alexandra's personal play space, Underground. After filming there, I had a session with one of her submissives, and then we doubled and filmed clips. And the third episode of my Modern Dungeons playlist can also be seen on this YouTube channel. After that, Mistress Alexandra took us to the souvlaki place that she deemed was the best, and it was such a wonderful time. Thank you for your generosity, and I hope you are well. The next morning, I flew from Athens to Copenhagen and straight from the airport boarded the train to go across the ORSUND bridge to Malmö, Sweden. I really appreciate how other countries keep their public transportation very clean. From the train station, I could actually walk to the hotel, which is kind of the reason why I chose it, and it was very beautiful inside and took me less than 1 minute to check in. The first thing I noticed was the drastic change in weather. I really had to layer up all of my outerwear, and I desperately needed a new pair of shoes still. But first, food. 2 buildings down the street from me was the Michelin star restaurant Bastard, and it lived up to its recommendation. They knew how to smoke their meats, their cocktails were strong and delicious. My favorite thing was the cronut, which was cut in half and filled with hazelnut cream, topped with powdered sugar, and drizzled with chocolate. You guys, so check out the floors. They are heated.
Je crois que je t'aime, je ne sais plus.
While it's filling up and it doesn't touch the water. Swedish design!
Pourquoi me taire, je ne sais plus. Tu n'es pas là, tu n'es pas la même, tu n'es plus la même aujourd'hui. Mais tu n'es pas là.
After a wonderful Scandinavian breakfast, I decided to take a walk, starting with the Malmö Castle.
Je ne sais plus.
Why did the pheasant cross the road? It was scared of getting eaten.
je ne sais plus.
I got some awesome nature shots because the seasons were turning fall. I staged everything to represent the fairy tale feeling and autumnal mood that the environment and Mother Nature was giving me. This is something that I really love about travel, is that even though autumn is happening in other parts of the world, it's never going to feel the exact way I felt at that moment.
Je crois que je t'aime, je ne sais plus. Pourquoi me taire, je ne sais plus.
Hey look, it's the bridge again. I really wanted to see what that unique tower was in the distance, and so I walked towards it. Stopping by a pond to watch some ducks, and taking in the minimal, modern design. It was really cool seeing all of the modern buildings that were built next to the old ones. I really like how medieval structures and old designs are still maintained to keep the history and as a remembrance to their evolution. I walked back into town and it was time to buy new shoes. I found these crocodile embossed type patterned ankle boots and I ended up wearing these for the rest of my trip. They were super comfortable even though they had a heel. I had to stop by what was considered the best Swedish meatballs in all of Malmö. Everything just melted in your mouth. I really love that street art is celebrated here. It's orderly and unique. I headed to Pildammsparken, which is a park with a beautiful lake and gardens that were so trim. My favorite was Margareta Pavilion. The parks are so green and pristine, it's unreal. I mean, look at these trees. I had to do something with the leaves to express the joy of being here. Yes, I participated in a fika. I connected with a fellow travel companion over a coffee and a slice of pecan pie before enjoying the sunset and walking back to my hotel.
Fromagerie.
really dug all of these markets where you could buy food of different cuisines, as well as handmade sweets. She's kicking the balls! Love it. I don't know. I didn't even realize that one of the recommended restaurants was Kwan, which was right underneath my hotel. What?
Did you get it?
Yes, I did get it. That's crazy.
Really cool.
My drink had edible gold dust, the food was delectable, and look at how beautiful this rose-flavored dessert looks. I was able to take a photo of my breakfast today before wolfing it down, and I decided that I would visit the interior of Malmö Castle and all of its museums before heading to Inkonst to drop off my femdom art. So the castle had a bunch of murder convictions, but it also had your traditional knight armor and, of course, loot. I mean, royal treasure. The gallery was really inspiring, and of course I had to take a portrait of myself reflecting the space. And then it was on to Inkonst, where Fennec Film had contacted me to showcase my mommy time self-portraits. I met the people that I was corresponding with via email and dropped off my prints. And then it was time to get a light dinner at a place called Super Falafel, which was really delicious and right by a river. After changing, it was back to Inkonst, and it was ready to experience their Erotikafton 2019 event. I also was super obsessed with this graphic design wall that obviously is suggestive in the symbolism. With it. I love what they did with it. This was the main reason I came to Sweden. Artists came from all over Europe, and it was a really fun time. It was an honor to show my work alongside all these other creatives. They had a live solo rope suspension act and multiple expressive art performances, which were titillating to the mind.
I should be dead.
Huge thank you to Anna, Jonathan, and Ada, who curated this amazing show. I hope I will see all of you again in the near future. The last leg of this trip was Copenhagen, and after taking a couple of matching selfies in the lobby bathroom, I checked into a much smaller hotel room. But since I was going to be touring the city, it was literally just going to be a place to shower and rest. So I tried to visit the Church of Our Savior, however, it was too windy and they had closed the viewpoint. So I took a stroll around Christiania and it was super eclectic, and I walked all the way down before taking transport back to the city. I had a dark stout at Mikuller and experienced how Denmark does burgers. I had breakfast at the next door cafe, which gave me a lion for my food order, which was a breakfast sandwich and pancakes. First up was the Round Tower, which had an exquisite 360 view at the top, followed by spacecraft exhibitions on its lower levels. I really like how progressive that they were with their merchandise. Then it was the Rosenborg Castle, and I wasn't sure why they needed armed guards on the outside, but I liked that this one was female. We will find out why. Royalty had a lot of money, and they had so many gifts coming in from all over the country and internationally. I was in love with this lion throne room. The treasury was actually next door, and these crown jewels are currently used for really formal processions and events. Although I'm not sure how safe it would be right by the exit, but I guess that's what the armed guards are for. Sometimes I have a plan for exploration, but other times I look on maps to see what is nearby. This was too cool to pass up. It is a star-shaped fortress called Castellet. There's a moat that surrounds the fortress and armed guards inside. Look at these back muscles. I was able to take a photo with the Little Mermaid. It was really great that I got to see her, even though this was the replacement to the original that was donated to the city. It started to rain, so I got a Danish hot dog. And then it was back to my hotel for a session. That evening, I met Mistress Number 1. She is the most innovative dom I have met so far, and if you watch my Modern Dungeons episode number 4, I tell you why. The last day, I had to get a cinnamon roll from Sankt Peter's Bakery because that was the number 1 rated place. And then I went to brunch at Union Kitchen before visiting another castle. Christiansborg Palace was next. Every wall was hand-painted. The library was pristine. The chandeliers were grand. The ceilings were extremely high. The whole place made me feel like dancing around inside it.
Tu n'es pas la même, tu n'es plus la même aujourd'hui. Mais tu n'es pas là, tu n'es pas la même, tu n'es plus la même aujourd'hui.
I really admired the paintings done over the span of 25 years for this one room. Also the wallpaper, and that you could see all the way through to the throne room. I was also able to visit the ruins under Christiansborg, and it was crazy learning that this place had burned down twice in its history, but each time it was rebuilt. I caught these horses that were being driven around the stables by Christiansborg. I really like how the stables were open to the public and the horses weren't spooked by any random person coming up to them. I was just in time to take one of the last canal boat tours. The multicolored buildings are such an icon of Copenhagen. Took a glance at the Opera House on the water. And after visiting this church, found fake boobs in a van. And this is the last section of the palace reception estate. This place was enormous, but every room was flawlessly designed and well kept. I returned to my hotel room to take a rest and watch the sunset. That evening, I hit up Tivoli Gardens, walked around, and I think my toes were cold because I could not feel them. It was a very cute amusement park and appropriately themed for Halloween. My only feedback would be that it needs music to really bring me into their environment. I ended up snacking on lingonberry and bacon pâté toast. Then it was time to dine at a multi-course meal at CRETE. On Tuesdays, they have an option for 4 additional dishes that the chefs experiment with, and there's no additional charge. All you have to do is give constructive feedback. The meal ended up being 5 hours long. I had shifted my reservation from 9 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. and I ended up staying there until after midnight. But it was worth all of these really delicious and creative dishes that had pine trees, the sea, and so much more. It definitely has earned its Michelin star for deconstructed Danish cuisine. I checked out pretty early in the morning and was on my way to the airport where there was a Lego welcome sign. I didn't have any expectations for this trip, but it far exceeded anything that I could have ever imagined, and I look forward to returning to these countries in the future. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Like this video if you want to see more tour recaps, and I'll see you in my next video.